So if you have an interview coming up that may be over Zoom, whether that be for medical school, residency, or even any other job, it's important to take in a few considerations for an interview that is done virtually. Let's get into 5 tips in this video to help you make it smooth and professional and help you land the job. So because of kind of the landscape of things now, a lot of programs are not going to be able to do in-person interviews for residency and most likely even for medical school. I don't know that one for sure, but that would be my guess. So in this video, what I want to go over is a few tips if you're going to do a Zoom interview, just because it's something that we're not really that accustomed to doing, just because it's new for us. I just want to give you a few tips so you don't make any of these blunders or pitfalls during your interview doing it on Zoom. So tip number 1 is wear a suit. Now I know it feels kind of weird to put a suit on in your own house for an interview, and you may even have a tendency to just put on a button-up shirt or something, but treat it as if you were actually there with the person that is interviewing you, and make sure that you wear a suit, wear a tie, and if you are a girl, dress up in the same way that you would for an interview, whether that be suit or not. However you would dress for an in-person interview, dress the same way for the Zoom interview to show the interviewer that you're serious about it. Tip number 2 is to consider the difference in your camera and your screen while you are doing the Zoom interview. Depending on where the camera is in your laptop, if you're gonna do it on a laptop, it can actually be way off to the side of where the screen is that you're looking at the person. And so the only reason I say that is because when you are looking at your screen, which is our tendency, because we're looking at the other person, we're not looking at the camera. And so to the other person, it looks almost that you're looking off to the side. So if you can get whatever you're filming the interview with or whatever you're doing the Zoom call on, if you can get it to have the camera that is filming you pretty close to where you are actually looking at the screen, it will appear more that you are making eye contact with the person you're talking to. So when you're talking to them, you're not looking at a screen watching them like this while the camera is filming you, because it looks like you're not looking at them. So that's just one consideration. I know it's subtle, but kind of subconsciously, people like for you to be making eye contact when you're talking with them. So it's just something to consider, is to not have a laptop where you're looking over here and the camera that's filming you is really far away. So if your camera's right at the top of your laptop screen, that could probably be okay. Just something to think about. Tip number 3 is to consider the background of what is behind you, because the person who is interviewing you is going to look at that. And so you want it to be at least semi-professional. Don't have your refrigerator in the background, or don't just let it be like a huge mess or something. You can do the kind of green screen type add-in backgrounds that Zoom does if you want. That would be, I think, a decent option. Or just go somewhere where the background behind you is gonna look reasonably professional. Maybe it's not something that you consider all the time, but try to do that. And also kind of bring up whatever is filming you. So if it's your laptop, don't be hunched over it with it pointing up at you. An up view is never a flattering shot for anybody. If you ever accidentally turn your FaceTime camera on and suddenly get that view of yourself, it's not a good view. So bring your laptop, bring whatever's filming you up more to eye level, so it's almost like you're having an eye level conversation with the person and not staring down at a laptop. Tip number 4 is make sure that the audio is decent. The audio input on a lot of laptops and things like that are not great. It should be doable, but it can kind of be distracting to an interviewer if the audio really sucks. If you're gonna be doing a lot of interviews, it wouldn't be unreasonable to consider getting a USB type microphone just to plug into your computer. It wouldn't be unreasonable, if you're gonna be doing 15 plus interviews, to maybe just invest in something like that, just so you're not having terrible audio quality and it's not a distraction to the interviewer. The 5th thing is to try to make sure that you're not interrupting the other person while they're talking. This goes for just a regular interview, but on these Zoom interviews, I've found there can be maybe a second or so of lag between what you say and what they say, and so it can kind of really disrupt like the natural flow of a conversation. And also the fact that you're not there in person, there is kind of a synchrony that develops in body language and body movement and just cadence of a conversation naturally that I think is kind of lost over Zoom. And so just make sure that you're not interrupting the other person and that you're pausing to let them talk, because I find that it's even more distracting to interrupt someone over a Zoom call than it is to actually do it in person. So just make sure that they finish speaking and then you can kind of wait a brief moment before you speak. Just try not to have both people speak at the same time, because it makes it just very awkward when it's coming through on both sides. There's a brief lag, both parties will stop talking, then there's an awkward silence. So just make sure to kind of be conscious of the natural cadence that normally goes on in a conversation, and to kind of be even more a little attentive of it over Zoom, just because of that kind of awkwardness that can develop if you're not. Bonus tip is don't be looking off and looking around during the interview. Stay focused on the person talking to you. Make sure you've put all distractions away. Lock your cats up in another room. Tell your spouse to let you just kind of do this alone. Don't be walking around in the background, because you want to be focused on the person the same way that you would if you were doing an in-person interview. Because if you're looking around, it just kind of signals that you're distracted, and subconsciously, even if they don't think this outright, subconsciously they'll think that you're not interested, and that's not how you want to come off. So just make sure that all distractions are put away and that you are focused in on exactly what you're doing. These are just a few practical considerations that I would think about when you are getting ready to do some of these Zoom interviews, just because it's something we're not used to doing. And even if you're going to do in-person interviews, a lot of these things still apply. Hopefully these things will make your interview a little more polished, a little more professional, and just make you come off in a good light for the interviewer and help you land that residency or medical school spot. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, leave a like on the video, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm Zach with Dr. Eyeball MD, and I'll see you guys in the next video.